Well, probably by the time I'm elected, if I'm elected, they'll have already solved all those problems, so we won't even have to worry about them. But in case they haven't, there's no question that there'll have to be cuts made, and I'm not one of those people who think any particular department or area is sacred. I think cuts can be made in many areas, with one exception. I would prefer not to make any cuts in libraries. I think they have been unfairly cut in the past. They need to be maintained at the level, even with severe budget cuts. I would reduce the positions allocated for police, and I would try to do more in areas of prevention which are at lower cost, things like peacekeepers, which are much lower cost than sworn police officers. Well, the agreement, I think, that was reached was a good agreement. I think it's unfortunate that Mr. Spanos and others have decided to try to circumvent that. There's much more that could be done with the general plan, but I think I think someone said in the paper this morning that it's not a question of what the general plan is. The question is who makes the policy, and that seems to be what the debate is really about. The costs of the general plan, of the things that are mandated in the agreement, while there are some, and some of them are questionable in terms of their necessity. Some of the things like, for example, when you're talking about building your house, you have a motion sensor switch which switches off the lights. Basically, I think most of us are smart enough to and have enough energy to get up and turn off a light switch rather than to have, so some things like that are mandated under sort of green building standards are probably not good ideas. They've been put in anyway. But in general, the costs, the things that are mandated are things that are smart to do anyway. They're not going to add a lot to building costs. And I know that as a general and electrical building contractor, so I'm not just guessing on it. Well, unfortunately, there's some stuff in contract language that's, and they're in the middle of a contract. So I understand that the contract is in force, and I personally have not looked at it to say, what my opinion as to whether the police are going to be prevail in court on that contract. Obviously, the city ought not to have gotten into that contract in the first place. When you use a comparable city, and one of the comparable cities is, and this, I don't know for certain if Vallejo was used as a comparable city in this particular case, but it has been used in some other situations. And then you've got a city that's going bankrupt or declared bankruptcy because of this. So you have to look and say what is this whole thing that's put in the contract. So when you're bargaining on a contract, it really has to be looked at very carefully.